Hello, everyone. In light of International Women's Day, Project Pastels is interviewing female professionals to highlight the achievements of successful women and give insight on gender discrimination. So I have a very special guest joining me today who works in the healthcare field, Dr. Mireille Kaprilian, who is a dentist. So to start, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I am a general dentist in Toronto, and I practice pretty much full scope of dentistry. I went to the University of Western Ontario for my dental education, and I've worked pretty much all over Ontario for the past 7 to 8 years, and have kind of settled in the Toronto area over the past 2 years, I guess you can say.
Okay, awesome. So let's get started. So to begin, I will start off by asking, why did you choose dentistry? Did someone inspire you? Why did you decide to follow that career?
So to be honest, the main reason why I chose a career in healthcare, I'd kind of characterize it as because I've always wanted and have felt the need to help people. Okay. I think dentistry in particular chose me. I was definitely drawn to it as a child. Like, people ask you when you're a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up, that sort of thing. And I used to always say I want to be a dentist. But, life events happen, opportunities open up as you're older. And I really do believe that life has a way to lead you down the path that you're meant to pursue. So that's sort of how I ended up in dentistry. In terms of someone that inspired me to pursue dentistry, there really wasn't one person. My family doesn't come from a medical background. However, I do have an aunt who was a high school math teacher, and I would say she is probably the greatest role model for me. She had 2 young kids, and she went back to school. She went back to university and got her bachelor's in science and physics and math. And so if somebody from her generation can do something like that, I thought, there's no sort of limitations to what I can achieve. And so I just kind of followed what I really enjoyed, and that led me into dentistry.
Yeah, awesome. Wanting to help people is definitely a common reason why a lot of people want to pursue healthcare, and myself included. So
totally, yeah.
Yeah. So the next question I have is, do you feel like you have equal opportunities to men? This is kind of a general question, but we can answer it however you like.
Sure. To be honest, Sarah, in terms of my experience, I think I've really created the opportunities that I've wanted for myself. If you work hard enough and prove yourself, for example, in dentistry, that you're a good clinician, and that you're a good person, in my experience, hasn't been that it doesn't matter that if you're a man or a woman. There's definitely some certain male dominated specialties, especially in healthcare. And I still feel like women don't have an equal opportunity in those particular areas, but I do see a wave of changes in that department. For example, this past weekend, there was a women in oral surgery symposium at the University of Michigan, and I've attended that. I attended the very first one about 2-3 years ago, and that continues to be something that is happening every year to encourage sort of up and coming students to pursue surgical specialties, in particular women. And so I can see the leadership is changing within the academic world as well, that there's more women surgeons. So that to me shows that we're moving towards a more equal opportunity situation.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's great that you created this opportunity for yourself, and for young girls, seeing other women pursue healthcare can definitely inspire them to do that as well, which is why I think a lot of more women are pursuing healthcare nowadays than before. Yeah, for sure.
Totally. Yeah.
So what are some neat things that people do not know about your profession? Because I know some people think the idea of dentistry is not very an enjoyable career. But
Mm.
what do you think people don't know about your profession that they should?
So I think that a lot of people think that like dentistry is this very like boring career that is like very basic and like all we do is like drill and fill cavities and that sort of thing. I think that I do my best to educate people, and just in my demeanor and like the way that I manage my patients and talk to my patients, I think that that like kind of portrays a different image as to what is a dentist. But I also try and explain to patients, that dentistry is multifaceted, that it's not just your basic sort of clinical skills. There's more to it than that. Like, for example, a lot of people don't know that most major hospitals have a dental department that provides some pretty essential services to really sick people in our communities. So, people that are having transplants or who have had some kind of head and neck trauma, these individuals really do need special consideration. And so to me, that's kind of interesting because dentistry is seen as like this sort of outside of our healthcare field, but it really does play an integral part of our healthcare and hospitals. So that's something kind of cool that I'm involved with that I think is interesting that most patients or people don't know about.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of facets to dentistry people don't realize, and how connected it really is to healthcare in general. It's not like this outside field that's not related to, health in general.
Yeah, your general health, definitely. Like there's tons of studies like in research that shows that, your gum health and your mouth or your oral health can really impact your general health. So totally.
Yeah, for sure. So the next question I have is, do you think this field of STEM fosters an inclusive environment in your experience?
So I think that the STEM field has made great strides in creating inclusive environments for whether it's a visible minority or women. I think as more, younger individuals, people that are coming from, different backgrounds are taking on more leadership roles in organizations, whether it's hospitals or healthcare or pretty much across the board anywhere. I think that's made a big impact on inclusive environments. And I think this will continue to evolve and improve over the next several years.
Yeah, like I said before, people seeing other people like them will definitely encourage them to pursue fields like STEM, where they might before feel more uncomfortable pursuing them because they didn't see a lot of people like themselves in those fields.
Yeah, I agree.
So have you ever experienced any form of discrimination in the workplace, whether it's for your gender or maybe even race, anything like that?
So I have to I don't recall like a particular experience of discrimination in the workplace. But there have been times in my career where I definitely know that I was hired because I am a woman, or not given an opportunity because I am a woman, in particular of childbearing age. Most people don't want to really talk about that outright, but you can tell from the questions that you're asked, let's say in an interview, or the tone that they're using, what's being implied. So I've definitely encountered that. In terms of race, I'm sort of a racially ambiguous sort of individual. Like people don't really know with my skin tone and my features, like what my background is. So that's kind of, I think, been an advantage for me because everyone just assumes I'm part of their culture. And so it's kind of been a non-issue for me in particular, but definitely being a female in the healthcare field. One example I give patients is like, when I walk into a room, a lot of times they just assume that I'm, a hygienist or a nurse or, a support staff sort of role rather than the actual dentist. And I have to be like, well, I've had patients say like, when's the dentist coming? And I'm like, I'm sitting right here. like I'm the dentist. But I think that's just like, because my demeanor is so casual that, that perception of what is a dentist is changing, and so patients and people have to get used to that. So yeah, so I don't know, did I really answer that question? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, people definitely have biases towards who they think what a dentist looks like, hygienist looks like, or even like a lot of times people think nurses are all women and dental hygienists.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your experience, do you think that there are gender gaps in the dental industry? Like, do you think it's more male dominated? And if so, why do you think that's the case?
So dentistry definitely used to be a more male dominated profession. However, I recall from my dental school class, like our class was 50-50, like the ratio was 50% female and 50% male. And I think that continues. I actually read a article in a dental journal a few years back that like the trend is that there's more females actually in dental classes, or that it's pretty much 50-50. So that's, something great for women, but also just, I think it's great for the profession to kind of start to break down those stereotypes that, okay, it's mostly male dominated, et cetera. I will say that there are certain specialties still that are mostly male dominated, and that gender gap is a bit more obvious still, but it takes time to kind of allow women to progress and pursue those types of programs. So
yeah, for sure, this is not something that can change overnight. Like, it has to take time for it to balance out, for sure, the ratio between men and women in these fields. And I think the trend that we have today is going up, and I think that's a really good thing, for sure. So do you think that there are assumptions about women in STEM or female dentists or women in general that you would like to change?
Yeah, there definitely are assumptions about women in STEM, especially those who are like very career oriented or high achieving. So for example, like a lot of people think that if you put your career first, then you can't have any other life sort of outside of work, whether it's having a family or a partner or pursuing other interests, that you have to sacrifice like basically your personal life to advance your career. Another thing that I find that a lot of people have experiences that women in STEM are inflexible or perceived as being unrelatable. And I try and sort of approach these topics head on by showing people that, I'm human too. I have emotions, I make mistakes, I have interests outside of my profession, that, I listen to various types of music, or like it's like small things like that to just like break those assumptions and create an environment where, like you said, that somebody, like if a young female patient is I'm doing a checkup for them or doing work for them, that they see that, I'm just like them. I'm not any different, right? So I think that that's an important way to kind of change those assumptions.
Yeah, definitely. Seeing someone, a female like you, as a dentist can definitely encourage a lot of young girls to pursue that career and break down the stereotypes of, what women should be like. And I think that's a really good thing. Yeah. So what do you enjoy the most about your career?
I think my favorite part of my profession and my career is the interactions that I get to have with my patients, the relationships that I get to build. I'm kind of a little bit too chatty probably for a dentist. And so I love spending that extra time talking with them, getting to know them, making jokes or whatever it is, right? It's kind of going back to your first question, like that whole aspect of caring for others is like a really big part of what gives me joy in my job. And so far in my career, patients seem to see that and they appreciate it. So that's probably the biggest thing that I enjoy. I also just really enjoy taking teeth out, or extracting teeth. So there's that too. So
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that being a dentist also has a big social aspect. Like
Mhm.
you get to meet so many different people and care for them. And I think being a dentist is super rewarding, knowing that at the end of the day, you made a difference in someone's health. I think that's super cool um, for a lot of people who want to get into healthcare, knowing that will definitely encourage them for sure.
Yeah, I tell people this all the time. 95% of dentistry is, patient management and patient interaction and that sort of thing. It's really only the 5% that's like the sort of the actual work or
Yeah.
hands-on skills aspect. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't think dentistry is really as boring and dry as a lot of people make it out to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So, what advice would you give to young girls hoping to pursue STEM and just healthcare fields in general?
So I love giving advice, number one. This was like a can of worms for me to
Yeah.
try and summarize. Um, my first piece of advice is try everything. Get out there, explore the things that interest you. There truly are no limits to what you can pursue. I've always had that sort of mentality in my head. So that's, I think, a big part of figuring out what you want to do and then, going after it. The second thing is mentoring. I think it's super important in STEM, especially so that young girls can see firsthand and have somebody to reach out to for advice. And, I've mentored lots of young females when it comes to dentistry or just healthcare or just like career advice and things like that. And the hope that I have is that every single individual that I get to mentor, that mentee eventually will become a mentor for somebody else. And that cycle continues, because I think if we all sort of help each other out and lift each other and encourage each other, then that helps to advance each generation of women that want to do more and experience more and achieve more. So those are the two, I
Mhm.
think, big pieces that I would advise young girls.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like the cycle, the mentor cycle you're talking about, is definitely a really big factor in encouraging young girls to pursue these careers and for them to be future mentors to other people as well. And the cycle continuing is just going to definitely increase the number of women who pursue STEM for sure. So
That's the
I will,
hope.
sorry, go ahead.
I said that's the hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very hopeful this will happen. So I have one final question for you, and it's what does International Women's Day mean to you? Because International Women's Day is coming up.
That's a great question. I think for me, I love the idea that of people celebrating women sort of on a global scale. I think that that's an amazing idea and something that should be, recognized everywhere. I think connecting and hearing, especially with social media these days, like that's kind of the biggest part I find with any kind of global issue, is that you get to connect and hear other women's experiences and help break down barriers and recognize the big role women play in our daily lives, whether it's STEM or, in the boardroom in businesses or whatever it is. So to me, it's just, I think it's a great celebration. I just find that it's so empowering to have this day or week of recognizing those individuals who paved the way for us, but also, helping to encourage others to do the same in the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's a great way to highlight all of the successful women who have achieved what they have, despite all of the barriers for being a woman that they had to come across. And so, yeah, I think I agree with everything you said about International Women's Day for sure. So yeah, that's all the questions I have for today. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and give your perspective on women and gender discrimination as a female healthcare worker. Um, I think you gave really good pieces of advice that, I definitely learned a lot from, and I hope anyone watching this video will learn too. And so, yeah, thank you for showing your support to Project Pastels.
No problem, Sarah. It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me on. And I hope that, this opens up, people's perspectives on dentistry and healthcare in general, and the role that women can play.
Yeah, thank you.